Everyone, today's webinar, Holiday Help Tips, is scheduled to begin soon. We are going to wait just a few more minutes to allow other registrants to log on and get settled. My name is Jackie Lacey. I'm Director of Education at BloomNet and Lead Design Instructor at Floriology Institute. My co-presenter today is Charlie Howard, Director of Product Sales for BloomNet. We know your time is valuable, so we are scheduled to go for 30 minutes of presentation and then 10 minutes for questions and answers. There's always lots of activity at Floriology Institute, so I hope you are following us on Facebook and are visiting floriologyinstitute.com for the latest news and blog posts on a wide range of topics. Our courses for the year have concluded, but we are looking towards a full year for 2018 and increasing some of our educational opportunities. We are so excited to announce our plans for the NAPCO Fresh Forum Education Weekend. This year, NAPCO is co-hosting the weekend with Floriology and Florida State Florist Association Mid-Season Summit. We have a great lineup of designers, a floral competition, hands-on wedding class with Neil Whitaker from the UK, and 5 other floral educational presentations. We are almost sold out. So if you're interested in this, you want to hurry and log on for more information and to register at bloomnet.net under Education and Events. You'll find the tab for Fresh Forum. All of the information is there, and you can actually register right there on the site. For more information on upcoming courses at Floriology and for webinars as they're coming out, visit floriologyinstitute.com/register. Just a quick housekeeping note. If you have any questions throughout the broadcast, please type them in the Questions tab in your GoToWebinar control panel that's over on the left. If someone could, please just let me know right now whether you can hear. Maybe if you'll just raise your hand in the question mark, or if you'll just log in there and let me know that you can hear us okay, then that will make sure that you're getting all the audio as it's presented and that we don't have any problems. For those of you that are listening, if you will write down on the right-hand side, you can even go under where it says questions, type in there, or you can raise your hand where you're listed under as an attendee, and it'll say whether that you can hear me clearly or not. Looking for anyone that's out there. If you have any problems with the audio, we want to get those corrected now so that we don't have any issues rather than waiting for later. So if someone can there we go. Thank you very much, Terry. I really appreciate you typing that in there so that we know we have no audio problems. Like I said, we're going to wait just another minute and then we'll start. But thank you so much for your patience, and the webinar will begin in just a moment. All right, it's a couple of minutes after, so we're going to go ahead and start today. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy to present today's webinar, Helpful Holiday Help Tips. And we've added actually a lot more information than when we first started with this. Presenting today is myself, Jackie Lacey, AIFD, CFD, PFCI. I am the Director of Education at BloomNet and the Lead Design Instructor for Floriology Institute. I also own shops in 3 different states and have managed as many as 45 employees. So I know exactly what all of you are going through right now, as I've been through it many times over the years in my career. I'm also currently the National Vice President for AIFD. And my co-presenter today is Charlie Howard. He is the BloomNet Director of Product Sales, as well as Charlie is Floriology's expert in floral operations and finance. He's also a former CEO of one of the largest flower shops in Florida. So he's very familiar also about the bottom line and what incredible information that he can guide us through and bring to us today. One of the things that we have to think about is just getting through the month of December holiday season. And as Charlie puts it, sometimes referred to as a month-long beating, as we all know that's the way it can be a little less painful if you are well-staffed and the staff is well-trained. And that's incredibly hard when you're the only person that's in the store and you've got new people in. But if you plan well, you'll see that there's a success rate that will help that provide you with a much more pleasant holiday season, and even more importantly, a more pleasant bottom line, which is what we're all looking for. Thank you so much, Charlie, for all this incredible information. And where we're going to start today is we're going to start with talking about hiring and getting prepared. Now, we know that this is a little bit behind the ball because we're already right on top of the holiday season and it's rolling along. But it's never too late to have valuable information. A lot of this could still be put to use right now and could help you jump on top of where you are as far as the holiday is going. But Charlie, what are your ideas on hiring?
Well, thank you, Jackie. I think the first thing is that you really have to kind of come up with a plan as to how many people do you need, when are they going to be working, what days are they going to be working, and what skill sets do you need them to have so that you can then start looking for those particular people.
That's absolutely right, and doing that at an appropriate time as opposed to waiting till the last minute is a valuable key to that as well, I would assume, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Also, what are there any other things as far as hiring that you can share with us as far as making that plan?
Well, I think the first thing is that you really want to take a look at your current staff, and as I say, if it's just you, then your job is pretty much done, except that you know your limitations and what you can do in the shop. So where are you going to need some help? Because you can't be in 4 different places at the same time, so you're going to be looking for different types of people to kind of help you out. Sometimes just a general pair of hands is a big help as far as just getting boxes or delivering things for you or helping a customer out and so forth. And they don't have to have any computer skills or any special talent to do that. They don't have to be a designer. But those kinds of people and so forth are invaluable and will really help you get through the holiday, provided that, number one, they show up when they're supposed to, and they are willing to work, and you don't have to go find them because they're hiding all the time.
Well, and I know that a lot of times people feel like if they're going to hire a part-time person, it has to be for a certain number of hours. But I know one of the things that we've talked about before is having someone in the shop for even 3 or 4 hours can make an incredible difference. And when you look at that, is there any tips that you can add for balancing out that time schedule?
Yeah. Well, again, when you're a smaller shop and so forth, the main key is that payroll. You're trying to keep those labor dollars down and controllable. Now, depending on how your shop runs, first thing in the morning, you probably don't need anyone because you can do that because you don't have any store traffic and the phones haven't started ringing. So it's when you start getting those people to drop into your store or the phone starts ringing or the wire machine starts spitting out some orders, that's when you need to be able to fill that gap. And it's always been my experience basically from 10 o'clock to about 2 o'clock are your really times where you seem to be the most busiest and so forth. So you should be looking for someone that maybe is only looking to work 3 or 4 hours a day, 2 or 3 days a week. And Jackie and I were talking the other day about his experience where he went ahead and went to a, what did you call it?
A job sharing.
A job sharing type system, as well as you had a retirement
center that's right in the area.
The retirement center was in the area, and you have people there that were tired of playing cards and so forth and just wanted to kind of have something to get out and do. And as I say, if they weren't working at Walmart as a greeter and so forth, they could possibly be working over at your shop.
Well, absolutely. And one of the other things, too, is that there is quite a number of people that are only looking for a few hours, 3 or 4 hours a week, because they either have another job that takes that. Especially when it comes to a holiday period, you're looking, a lot of people are looking to supplement their income because of the holiday.
Right.
So they may be willing to take something for a short term, for a few hours a week, that can help relieve your already produced staff, so that also helps massage the budget a little bit for that.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get pardon the expression, but you could get a woman that has school-age children that she normally goes ahead, drops the kids off at 9 o'clock at the school, doesn't have to pick them up till 2, so she's got 3.5 hours or 4 hours that she could actually put in some time and help you out during the holiday.
And I think it's also a perfect time for us to be thinking about, as far as training and cross-training when we have someone in, the number of people that are very interested in learning our industry. So many times people will say, I would love to come and work with you, that way you can teach me some of these. Offer that as part of the appeal to get someone in to work those few hours. I know that there are several different types of hires, and some of those that we've talked about are seasonal or temporary, part-time, and full-time. Is there anything that you can share with us as far as recruiting is concerned?
Well, on the recruiting side, the first thing I always look for is look in your own backyard or look to your own family and so forth. Sometimes you have some people that can help you out, whether it's an uncle that's just recently retired or it's a school teacher that may be able to come in and help you. And a lot of times they're a lot more flexible than if you get an employee or try to get an employee to come off the street and start working for you, and right away they want to know when they're going to get vacation pay and when do they have any benefits or something along that line. So that's the first area that I look for is family and friends. Sometimes that doesn't work out and the family won't like you anymore after you've worked them to death, but again, that's part of unfortunately being a florist. The other part is going to the schools. I mean, sometimes you can get some of the kids that are in college and so forth, and you can get them to work part-time for you, so forth. And again, in an interim type system, that works out fairly well.
Well, I also want to remind everyone, too, is that don't discount social media, especially in today, because Facebook does have a setup process where you can actually take applications and recruit on your Facebook page. They will direct you right through it. It's something new that they've started, but it is available there. There's also a website called Indeed.com, which is free. So you can recruit people through these free resources that are out there. I know you've mentioned community bulletin boards, going into some of the retirement centers, posting, also dropping some of those posts on your social media, Instagram, Twitter, talking about the fact that you need someone. Also think about hosting a blog that specifically talks about the position you're trying to fill. You never know how many people are going to pick up on that blog, and they'll contact you on the side or through your Facebook to inquire about some of those positions. And then also you can look for things like a lead generator through some of the other social media sources that can cost as little as $50, $60 a month. I know that that's a lot in some of our budgets, but it's also something that can be easily worked into your budget. When we talk about taking in applications and recruiting, one of the other things too that I want to that's been very successful to me and I want to talk about is I generally set up a dummy either email or post office box somewhere where they had no idea who was inquiring, so that I could filter through some of those that might not be qualified for the position or might just be filling out an application for some other source, some other reason. Is that something that you would recommend as well?
Yeah, we've done both parts. Again, depends on what type of relationship you have in the community and your competitors and so forth, because you don't want to seem like you're trying to steal help and so forth. But I've done that in the past as well. And getting back to the recruiting, one of the other things you should think about if you really are serious about hiring someone, put a sign right in your door, help wanted for the holiday, so forth, because you never know if it's going to be your customer that walks in and says, hey, I have a brother-in-law that's looking for work, or I've got my mother looking for work. So you never know who's going to answer that. But again, getting back to the applications thing, those are all good places to start. And I've even used Craigslist to try to get some recruitment. The only thing with Craigslist is that I normally get a lot of people that are not qualified. So one of the things that helps you out when you do post on Craigslist is to go ahead and tell them what you want to pay. And that eliminates people that want $50 an hour to be a general helper.
That's very good information there. And remember that Craigslist does charge some, I think, for some of their listings. It depends on how it's going through there. but make sure that you stay on top of those, whether there is a charge or not, because you don't want to blow the budget before you even start.
Correct.
As part of the application and interviewing process, is there any things that you recommend specifically when it comes to interviewing?
Well, I always like to, if you possibly can, and again, the smaller the shop, the more difficult it is, but if you can have an area where you're kind of away from the mainstream a little bit, sit down and actually spend 10 or 15 minutes with each application and talk to them and get an idea of how they are. It's tough because if you've got the phone ringing, you've got to put out a couple fires and so forth. It's very, very difficult to try to conduct an interview and get a good feel for it. What I like to do is I like to see the application first, make some notes on the application so that when I actually have the prospective employee in front of me, I can kind of go over my questions and kind of get some answers that will help me evaluate whether or not I would like to bring this person into our shop or not.
Well, and I know also one of the things that I would do, if they had really good handwriting, they had really good communication skills, it might be someone that I want to bring in to put on the telephone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all are aware of telephone sales and the need for that, or cold calling is still going on. Social media can certainly help with a lot of that, but bringing someone in for just a few hours a week during the holiday period is a great opportunity to fill some of those smaller positions and to not overwork your employees, your designers, for those mundane tasks. So really evaluate what you need and look for those in the interviewing process as well as application as you're going through there. As we start to look at applications and then move on to employment, when we're ready to employ someone, there's a lot of information that we have to take into consider when it comes to that employment. Is there some highlights that you want to hit on?
Yeah, I think that when you bring the employee in and you're ready to get to the employment side, if you can put together a list of tasks or expectations that you expect them to be able to do, then there's very, very little misunderstanding. And if it's spelled out on a piece of paper that, all right, you're going to be working 3 days a week from this hour to this hour, so you're only going to get, whether it's 12 hours or 15 hours, that's basically what I can sort of kind of guarantee that's going to happen. So that eliminates an awful lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions. And as I say, if you even have their rate of pay on there, what they're going to get paid, then there's really not a lot that they can come back with and say, geez, you know, I thought I was going to be making more, or I thought I was going to have Saturdays off, or, you know, I couldn't, you know, stay after 5 o'clock or whatever. If it's all there in writing and so forth, it just makes things a lot easier down the road.
Well, and I know one of the things that worked very successfully for me is not so much as a commission basis, but I would offer sometimes percentages for new business that was brought in. So if you've got someone that's working in either in the shop or on telephone sales or even with social media, because a lot of business can be brought in that way, allowing them to control their own destiny, so to speak, control how much they can make, can a lot of times produce a lot more on the back end if you do give them that control. The more they see that they're responsible for making their own money, quite often the more they're going to be able to do.
Well, I'm always a big believer in incentives one way or another to get the people interested and to keep them focused in on taking care of business, whether it's being on the telephone, whether it's design, or whether it's delivery. If they know that they can make more by doing more, then you tend to get more production out of them.
Good. And when we've got them, now we've already taken applications, we've decided to hire someone, and we have to train them and we have to cross-train them. And it's a short amount of time. How do you go about training someone for just the sales position?
Well, in the sales position, unfortunately today, most everybody is computerized with some sort of POS system, so they pretty much have to be able to ring the customer out without having to ask a whole lot of questions. So the bottom line is that when you put someone in front of the PC, if they are hesitant at all or they're not really that comfortable and so forth, that is not a good choice for them to be put on the sales to ring them up. However, you can still use the person as a salesperson to go ahead and help the customer in the store and so forth, and then lead them over to the register where maybe you have an experienced sales clerk that can actually bring them up, knows how to run the credit card, and knows some of the other questions that you have to ask them, like, okay, do you want this delivered, or is it going out of town, or the funeral or the hospital rooms, or some of that information that as a new person in the flower shop you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't have time to pretty much learn that, but you can, again, help out with the sales effort. And after it's been rung up, maybe that salesperson can then go ahead and wrap it up and put it in the box and help the customer out the door with it to their car. So it's not like, you have to be able to run the POS day one, but you certainly can be a big help to the shop.
Well, and I would say, Charlie, too, we've done a lot of webinars recently over the last 3 months talking about the different generational gaps that we're dealing with and the various generations that are in the marketplace, coming from baby boomer all the way down to Generation X, talking about those. Really knowing who you're hiring and what their strong points are going to be is a great way to lead you into where you're going to use them. Someone might be great at customer service, but if it's a millennial that's talking to a baby boomer, that generation gap may come into play and can go good or bad either way. I think really evaluating that is something that's incredibly necessary today.
I agree with that, and one of the things that will come up is that basically the millennials don't have a lot of money, so technically, or realistically I should say, is that when they're suggesting something, they're looking at their pocketbook and not the customer's pocketbook. So if you have an older person like myself or Jackie, we tell them to go for the $100 arrangement, where the millennial probably says, hey, I got something for $30. So that kind of sometimes, again, will work against you in that, yeah, they can relate to some group, but they can't relate to the older group, like Jackie was pointing out.
Well, I think that's incredibly important, and it's something I mention all the time. Don't sell from your own pocketbook. Mine doesn't have a whole lot of pennies in it. So I want to look for those that are full, and giving them an opportunity. You can always go back down, and I think that's part of sales and cross-training. You can always come down in price. It's really hard to go back up once you've started, making sure that all those options are there. I want to spend a few minutes talking about customer service because I think that that's so incredibly important. Customer service is the one thing that can make or break you and can separate you from your competitors. Offering the best customer service and remembering to not discount the current customer base that you already have. Offer more for those than trying to reinvent the wheel and bring in so many new customers. Can you do more for those that you already have? Is that something that you find to be true and helpful for the bottom line?
Very much so. And, the bottom line is that people have to remember one thing. Normally when they're calling the florist, it's because they're driven by an emotion. They're either in love, they're in trouble, they're either in sadness, or they're celebrating something, whether it's a birthday or anniversary, or, as I say, sadness, you've got a funeral, a sympathy, someone that's not doing well, and so forth. That's all driven by emotion, and you have to be able to relate to the customer in an emotional way that you understand what they're going through and so forth, and you're there to help them and so forth, rather than just in another retail place where they're just basically scanning an item through the cash register. And that's what separates us from the other retailers, if you will, in that we are special and we understand that you are driven by an emotion.
Well, I think also, too, looking at providing that customer service and looking at your customer base, look at previous sales and sales history and go back to those same customers and say, I know that you sent your aunt, your uncle, your relative something last year. Would you like to repeat that again? A sales call rather than an email sometimes can lead them right into something because you care enough to pick up the phone and call and get some of those sales. And if you've got someone that's good on the telephone, that might be something that you want to consider.
Oh, I definitely agree with that, Jackie. And as I say, for the younger generation, they're all done with text and emails, but those old guys and so forth, we still like that personal call. And as I said, when I'm driven by that emotion and I actually call up the flower shop and so forth and I get a hold of the salesperson, Mary, and she basically says, Charlie, I got your order. It'll be there by 3 o'clock. It's a lot different hearing it from Mary than getting a cold email through the website saying, we acknowledge your order and it will be processed. You just don't have that same connection.
Well, I hear a lot that leads us right into our other topics, design and delivery, and those are distinctively different that we all know. Occasionally you do have to be both, especially when you wear the big hat in the shop, but it's very challenging to get in quality designers in a lot of areas. Are there any suggestions that you can offer on finding someone for that, or recommendations when it comes to holiday period?
Well, I think of design, and I'm not a designer myself, but I think there are two types of designers. There are flower arrangers that are basically following the same recipe over and over again, and I don't want to discount that position because it's a talent that I couldn't do and so forth, but it's necessary because, as I say, if you're filling the orders from incoming florists and so forth, you will find that there will be a dozen or so arrangements that come in all the time and so forth, and they do that recipe. So you can get a lesser skilled design person or someone that's in training to go ahead and fill those orders, and then use your full designer or yourself, because you are the full designer. Basically, you're doing all the specials, and you're doing the big funeral work, and you're doing the stuff that takes a little bit more time and so forth. So that's one way to kind of help out. One of the other things that we've launched here is a pre-made bouquet program that is basically tailored for the larger shops that are filling the 1-800 flower orders. But having a pre-made bouquet is basically all you have to do is chop the bottom off and drop it in a vase. It sounds simple. It's a little bit more involved than that, but the bottom line is that you don't need a full designer and so forth to be able to do that and so forth, and that's where you can train maybe a salesperson or so forth to be able to help you out with doing that dozen rose arrangement or something else that's very similar. And again, if they have any depth perception and so forth, they can probably handle that. I don't have it, so I never could.
Well, I know, being a former shop owner, one of the things that I often brought in were mechanical designers, and that's what I referred to. Put the flower here because that's where it belongs. Having someone get your designs even halfway started gets you the ability to do a lot more in a shorter amount of time. So training someone to be a mechanical designer, put it here, put it here, put it here, is a lot easier and a lot easier to find in today's market than finding that experienced designer, and get those projects at least started and up and running. When it comes to delivery, one of the things I think that people don't always think about is that delivery person is the face to your company. Quite often, the person on the telephone and the person that delivers the flowers are the only two people that anyone is going to see when it comes to your company. You want to make sure that they're trained, and delivery is more than just delivering an arrangement. Any input that you'd like to add there, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, we always had the delivery person with a logoed shirt or a hat or something to let them know that this was our flower shop that was making that delivery. And everything that we delivered and so forth had our name plastered on it, so that there was no problem as far as we had the phone number there, you had the flower shop, and we instructed the delivery people, again, to go ahead and make it a personal delivery, not, drop it off and get out of there as quick as possible, and make sure that the arrangement looked good. There's nothing wrong with saying, wait a minute, I want to replace that one because I see I've got some broken stems or I'm missing something and so forth, because that basically shows poorly on your shop and so forth that you really didn't care. And again, as Jackie said, they talk about the salesperson that took the order, and they talk about the person that delivered it, and those are all key. And just as an ad, if you don't have any signage on your delivery vehicle, you really should, because everyone is going to see that throughout whole town, and it's a mobile billboard for your shop.
One of the other things, too, is making sure that you're drawing or you're capturing people's attention. Something that worked very well for me is it's the holiday period. It's a joyful time of the season. I've capitalized on that. Quite often I would have someone dressed as an elf doing my deliveries, or dressed like Rudolph or Santa or a wise man. Anything I can do to draw attention to my name, my logo and my phone number to get people to call. It was amazing how many times someone would just stop and say, where are you from? Those are ways to get your name out there. So don't be afraid to try something like that. Put someone in that suit, get them out there delivering and drawing new business in for where they're just currently filling your orders right now. And when it comes to general help, having someone that can just clean the store, keep it organized, water your plants, a lot of times that can be that person 3 or 4 hours a week that's filling in and doing some of those tasks that will allow your designer to continue to design and produce without having to stop and clean the store. Nothing's worse than walking into a filthy, dirty store and not knowing where to set your shopping bags while you look. Let's move on to store operations, because I think that's incredibly important. When it comes to store days and hours, what are your recommendations for that, Charlie?
Well, again, you have to adjust your shop to basically what your neighborhood is doing and so forth. So if your neighborhood shuts down at 6 o'clock, then normally there's no sense in trying to extend it to 8 or 9 o'clock at night, thinking you're going to pick up extra people, because they're just not going to be there. But let the employees know what your schedule or what your plan is, so they can also plan accordingly. So if you plan on working the Sunday before Christmas and so forth, let them know that that's part of the game plan, that this is what you want to do to get the last minute shoppers in and capitalize as much as you possibly can on the holiday.
I think also that's another opportunity for your social media posting and blogging to talk about what your store hours are and why you're staying open later hours during the holiday period. Maybe it's just certain days during the week, but make sure that you're letting everyone know about that. So, because it is a busy time of the year, people don't get off until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to close at 5 o'clock. It's impossible for them to get there. Be there when they need you to be there, because you need their dollars. So you want to make it convenient to them. What about store appearance and display?
Well, there again, I mean, you spent time decorating the store, and then a lot of times we forget to go ahead and check to see if the display is working. Are all the lights still on, or have they blown the switch or the circuit breaker? You know, if you've got any mechanicals running and so forth, are they doing well? Just what does the shop look like and so forth? And sometimes you have to go outside the shop and just take a quick peek and make sure that everything is okay and the parking lot is cleaned up and you don't have anybody, a homeless person in the front of your store.
Well, I know from owning 3 stores at one time that we whiz into that back parking lot, we park and we run in right at the last minute so that we can throw the lights on and be open at the time we say we're going to be open. The first thing that I always did was walk back out the front door, close my eyes, turn around, and walk in as a customer. What do I see? It was amazing to me how many times even my own employees would see something that I picked up yesterday and moved to a new spot on the sales floor, and they would want to know where that came from. And it's been sitting in that other spot for days or weeks at a time. Moving things around, making things look fresh, and making sure that everything is clean is valuable and important. If I pick up something that I've got to knock the dust off my hand, I'm going to set it right back down and go look for some hand sanitizer or a basin to wash my hands off. Yeah. Make sure you're cleaning that store. And what about restocking shelves, keeping those going?
Again, you know, you can't sell from an empty cart, was an old saying. You need to do the same thing with your merchandise. And one of the things that happens is that as you start winding down the season, or the holiday, I should say, you want to try to consolidate some of your store inventory so that it doesn't look like you have empty shelves, because people will then get the idea that, oh, you don't have anything to sell. So one of the tricks is to go ahead and just start cutting back your display area and keeping it full so it looks like you have still plenty of stuff to sell. The other thing of it is as you get closer to the end of the holiday, it might be time to go ahead and start some sort of discounting, whether you start with 20% off or 10% off. Do something, because sometimes you want to get rid of that Christmas inventory just simply because, number one, you don't want to have to pack it up and put it in the attic for next year. The other thing of it is you certainly could use the cash now rather than waiting another year for it. And you have to remember that maybe this is the last season for this particular product or color or theme, and you're going to want something different next year.
You know, and I would recommend to take that a step further, because so many people, especially when it comes to millennials, and we were talking about those just a little bit ago, are going to look online for their purchases. One of the things that might grab their attention is to do a live post from your actual floor. Look at the products that I have. Look what I've got in my cooler. Doing that live post is very simple on Facebook. You can post it on there. There's directions there. You can Google it. You can look at a YouTube video on how we have information on FloriologyInstitute.com that will help you, guide you through doing a live post as well. But posting something to keep your name out there, to keep your name on the end of their tongue when it comes to making those purchases, may be a way to line up some of those last-minute purchases as we move through the season as well. So do a live post from your sales floor. Do a live post once a week or every other day, or as much as you possibly can, because people watch the live posts so much more than they do just a still photo. We're coming to the end of our time, and we want to just check and see if there's any questions. Again, go to the question box on the right-hand side of your page. There's a place there where you can ask any questions about any of the things that we've gone over, or anything that just comes to mind when it comes to holiday. We're here to help. After the webinar is over, should you have any questions for Charlie or myself, you can reach me at Jackie@FloriologyInstitute.com. That's Jackie@FloriologyInstitute.com. Or if you have questions as far as financing or store operations, reach out to C. Howard@WorldFlowers.com. That's C. Howard@WorldFlowers.com. We are here to help you and interested in helping you have a successful season, and going beyond the season for you to have a successful business. That's one of the reasons that Floriology is here. Are there any questions at all about any of the things that we've talked about, or anything that comes to hiring, interviewing, setting up holiday help? If there are no questions, we are going to wrap up today's webinar. We hope that you have gotten some points. Some of these are things that you already know. A lot of times we just need to be reminded that that was a good practice, and it's something that has been in practice since the industry has been here. Don't hesitate to go back to some of those things that you've tried before. But something that I did in my own business that I found, when something went right, those are the notes that I kept. I wrote those down, I put those in my file, and I look at not just the holiday season, but every time of the year, Valentine's, prom, wedding season. Those are all holiday seasons. Treat them the same. Keep good records. Do a wrap-up. Do something that will allow you to refer back to that file when you get to that same period next year, so that you can be prepared in September as opposed to being prepared in November. We wish you nothing but success this holiday season. Hope you've enjoyed the webinar, and tune in again at the end of the month. We have another webinar coming up on the 29th. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great evening.